Looks like we're still missing Alan, are we?
It looks, didn't see him on the list of participants.
He is on the list of participants. I've sent it to both emails now that he has. And we are live now.
Okay. So we shall call the meeting to order. And can I have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
I so move.
Dennis, seconder.
I'll second.
Lisa, anybody opposed?
No.
Any declarations of conflict of interest? Hearing none. Adoption of the minutes. We don't have any minutes. No presentations. So the reports. So we start with 2020-076. This one is for information only. So Richard?
Hi, yeah, so this report is just information regarding the changes we've made to the survey with respect to the conversations that we had at our last CDAC meeting. So a number of changes have been made to the survey, primarily just improving some of the format of the questions and increasing some of the questions around the trail experience and maintenance, so that we can take that back into how we work with how we do our management and maintenance planning around that. So at this point, I think this report speaks for itself, and if the committee has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, Dennis has a question.
Yes, I think the general survey was good. There was one question, or question 30, on background and race and so on, and that one didn't fit very good with me. I'm not sure how appropriate it is, and I didn't know what usefulness that information would be, even if we got it. And if it's going to primarily to Frontenac County, I think 90% of people roughly would tick off the white box. But did you have some specific desire or outcome from that?
Yes, so good question, and appreciate that question, Councillor Doyle. The way that some of our funding works through federal and provincial, especially the federal funding, they're looking to see increases in people of color having access to public infrastructure based on what they're doing, and same for tourism funding that comes from the federal government. So they're actually asking me to report on specifically these things in my reports going forward. And so this is a way to capture some information that improves it. So for example, in the for community infrastructure program funding, they'd like to see an increase of Indigenous use of the local infrastructure, as well as an increase of non-white or people of color in the use. So it's you don't have to fill it out. It's not a requirement to fill out that information, but if we're getting that information given to us voluntarily, it helps us with that reporting.
Dennis?
Yes, a good explanation, Richard. And I'm just worried that some people take offense to it, but maybe it's becoming normal if the feds want that kind of information. And if we leave that question there, is there any way we could try to get it to the more of our Indigenous population, which is up in the northern part of Frontenac County? I
think that we'll try to get the survey out to as many people across the county as possible, and we'll work with our partners in all the townships to do so.
Hey, Barry?
Yes, I have a question, Richard. The survey was quite extensive and well done. It struck me, though, that it was oriented to business feedback, and I didn't see much that would allow tourist visitors to have some input. How will the survey be displayed? Will it be on the web page for the county, or are you going to make hard copies at Chamber of Commerce offices or anything? Richard?
He
It
seems
looks like
frozen.
he's frozen right now.
Or listening very intently, one or the other.
It wasn't that tough a question to freeze him up, was it?
Now he's disappeared.
I think we've lost him completely now.
I can hazard an answer if you like, and maybe
Yes, please.
if Richard comes back on, he can speak to it better. I think the main form of communication, Barry, would be through the website, and we would push that out through social media. And I think Richard would have explained last time that the way this survey works is you stream into you identify yourself as either a local, a visitor, or a business owner, and then you stream into a series of questions. So if I identify in the beginning that I'm a visitor, I will see a specific set of questions geared to me as a visitor that are different from the local and different from the business owner questions.
Ah.
So there is a method there to capture specifically the visitor audience.
Great, thanks, Allison.
Okay, Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for joining the meeting a little late, but I did not receive any advance invitation, nor did I receive the survey. I gather it got sent to another email address, and I was also sitting in another meeting while I was waiting for this. So I do apologize for the late start, but I'm also not able to contribute as much as I would like in the survey component.
Okay. I'm sure Allison or Richard or Brianna or someone can address that with you.
On that note, that would be my fault, Alan. I did send it to an email that we do have from previous emails. I did just email you and ask what your preference is, just because we do have multiple emails on file for you. And again, that's my apologies, and we'll get that figured out and figure out what email will be most appropriate to contact you going
It's not
forward.
a problem. We'll certainly sort it out, but it was a little confusion for the start of this meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Anyone else have any questions or comments on the survey? Dennis?
Yeah, the one thing we had talked about at a previous meeting is the survey specifically for people in the Verona area about that use of ATV issue. And I guess this survey really isn't appropriate to try to get into that. But so I wonder how we get feedback there and how we address that issue. And the other thing is, I had a meeting for most of the day yesterday at the county, and did have the opportunity to discuss briefly with Warden Smith and CAO Kelly Pender. And they're of the impression that this committee is trying to get ATV use right across the entire trail, right from south to bottom, or no ATV use in the entire trail. And I have never got that impression from any of these meetings. I thought the only issue was through Verona. And the only thing is, I had to leave the last meeting early because of another Zoom meeting. Am I right in assuming that the only issue is through the Verona from Bell Rock Road up north to Craig Road?
Barry or Mary or Barry, do you have a comment on that?
Well, I think that's on the agenda because Richard has pointed out that if we want to examine the use of ATVs in general, we need to go back to the county. And so I'm totally fine at this go round, just looking at the usage in Verona. Because if everyone's fine with it being used in Verona, then clearly they're fine with it in general. My feeling is, let's test the waters. Down the road, I mean, there are issues with those ATVs, but I don't know if we're ready to do that kind of large overview of the use of the trail. That's
Okay,
my
Barry. Okay, Barry, can you
Yeah, I'd
comment?
like to make a
quickly?
comment, Madam Chair. I think our committee is very poorly advised on the impacts of ATVs. This isn't just an opinion and preference in a specific area. I think there's a larger issue, although I think we should just deal with the Verona aspect of it. But the concerns I have are both the way it'll displace people that want to go out and walk for quiet, etc. Having motorized vehicles go through a town is not very good for children going out using it, going to school, etc., like that. So I wrote a chapter on the effects of off-road vehicles in a book some while ago, mostly on wildlife effects. But it's a huge issue, and off-road vehicles are very highly engined, very powerful, and can go 70, 80 miles an hour. So I think there's just a conflict between pedestrian use of all kinds and motorized vehicles.
Okay, so Dennis, now, would you like to comment?
Yes, I would like to propose that we make it clear to the county council that our only issue at this point is the Verona area, because I'm afraid some misinformation got out there and they think that our committee is trying to stop it, although all the way north of Craig Road as well. But I was on the original committee going back 10, 11 years ago, where we spent a lot of time on this issue, and it was a compromise that was made without with a lot of thought put into it, and we had many meetings to get into that. So I think for right now we should just not but concentrate on the Verona thing, because if we go there, it opens up probably a point that's even beyond the mandate of our committee. But the Verona thing is certainly, I think, under our area. So thank you.
Okay, Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder, one of the things that is uncertain for me, at least, is the impact from the grant that we received from Trails Canada that had the stipulation of no motorized vehicles in that portion from below or south of Craig Road. And I wonder, would it be possible to see a copy of that portion of the agreement that dealt with that particular issue? Because if it has an impact in the standing for the county or our townships, it might be helpful for this committee to be aware of the details of that.
Okay, so we can ask Richard to bring that forward in the next, for the next meeting. Dennis, sorry.
Thank you.
Dennis?
Yes, I was at those meetings where we had the Trails Canada people there, and they were adamant about not spending any of the grant money that they gave us for portions of the trail that allowed motorized vehicles. So I would suspect we might get a legal challenge if we try to make the ATV use permanent through Verona, because we developed that area with money that was given with that condition. So I'd be quite nervous about that point.
Okay, so has that been brought up to the county when they proposed this trial? Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it was mentioned, but I don't know at that point that we really had any details on the agreement that really gave members of council much opportunity to consider the actual issue appropriately. So it might be helpful to have that information to see how it would affect our decisions.
Yeah, for county council and for this committee.
Yes,
Mary's
Yeah.
next.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say I'm worried about legal action. I think if we made an agreement, if the county's made an agreement, the county's made an agreement. It's not ethical to say, well, we change our mind, whether or not Trails Canada launches a formal complaint. A deal's a deal, in my view.
Okay, thank you. Wilma?
Can we be sure that this will come before county council? Because it seems they're making their decision in September. And they need that information in front of them, that reminder, if that's the case.
So just for clarity, county council will be discussing the proposed working group to evaluate ATV use on the trail in general at county council, as requested by the committee at our last meeting. The use in Verona will be back in front of county council after we complete the survey and after we bring the survey and information to this committee either later this year, December potentially, more likely early next year.
Thanks.
Okay, so is it possible for this agreement with the Canada Trail to be added in with the working group reports to go to county council so that they're fully aware of what they're saying, agreeing to?
I will have parts of the agreement as part of the information presented, as well as any comments from Trans-Canada Trail at that time.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mary?
Okay, I'm slightly confused, and that wouldn't be the first time. So I thought one of the points of the meeting, the way I read the agenda, is that we have now been informed that if we want to look at the whole ATV use, we have to go to council. But the discussion today was, we don't think we're ready to have a discussion on the entire use. We want to focus on the Verona portion first. So am I reading this committee correctly? And I don't think the consensus was we want to go to council in September and have this ad hoc group. I thought the ad hoc group was going to look at Verona, but some of the learnings may be used down the road. So am I wrong?
I can clarify that for council, okay, if you like. That's my understanding of our last meeting was that we were looking at two issues. One was within Verona and one was at ATV use more broadly, and that the working group was to look at more broad use of the ATV, and that was the subject of the motion that was made.
And that was my opinion, my thoughts too. Dennis?
That must have happened after I left the meeting then, because I was never involved in the discussion. We'd look at the broader use. And I don't think it's appropriate we do that. I don't think that's the purpose of our committee. This was established back about 10 years ago now. And I don't think it's appropriate. We've developed the trail with that understanding. And I think the only issue that this committee should be working on is through the Verona section.
Okay, Lisa or Greg, do you have any comments on this?
Nothing that would be intelligent.
Oh, now, come on, everything's intelligent.
That's a pretty high bar, I'd say.
Okay, so are we saying so the working group, we're gonna ask them for a working group to look only at the Verona section, am I correct?
I'll move that if it helps.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I also have, it looks like the manager of legislative services has her hand up, if you give her permission to speak.
Okay.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, I did watch the tape from the last meeting, and there was consensus and a motion made around the committee wanting to look at ATV use along the entire trail. So, and to set up that working group. So under and I believe this is noted in the Manager of Economic Development's report, that the working group is actually permitted under the terms of reference for the committee. You are able to set up working groups. However, to take a look at the entire use of ATVs along the trail, would be in contradiction of an already assumed council decision. Council has already made a decision on ATV use on the trail. So that is the reason why the report is going forward to council, so that the working group is able to look at the entire use of ATVs on the trail. That does require council permission. So that's the consensus of the report that is going forward to council, if that helps the committee at all.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Mary first.
Okay, so my understanding was, as a committee, we could have ad hoc groups at our discretion. Now that I understand better, we cannot. I don't feel this committee is ready to go to council to ask permission to do an overall view. I don't think this is the right time. And so with further information, I would just like to stay with the Verona discussion for now.
Okay, so Dennis?
Yes, I agree with Mary. We should stay with Verona. And if that resolution was passed, we should amend it to say we no longer want to do that.
Okay, Barry?
Yes, I was going to second Dennis's motion, and I agree with Mary's statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the clarification then. So now we want to amend the working group to only work on the temporary use at the Verona Trail and what the effects of that use are on the ATVs in that Verona section. Can someone word that correctly for us? Anybody?
Brianna's usually pretty good with that.
Have you got that, Brianna?
Yeah, so we're going to take the previous motion and amend the motion to include that we are only going to be focusing on the Verona trailhead and no other outside of that. The temporary use of the Verona trailhead, sorry.
Well,
That's correct.
Alan?
Madam Chair, I think the issue really is motorized vehicles between Bell Rock Road and Craig Road that happens to run through the hamlet of Verona. But that's the issue at stake, I think, is that was the adjustment that council made on the temporary basis. So I believe that's the area we're concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any? So Dennis, you moved it?
Yes, and I'm okay with amending it
And-
in the words that Alan said. It's between Craig Road and Bell Rock Road.
Okay, and Barry, you seconded it?
Yes,
Madam-
Okay, anyone
Madam Chair.
opposed? Yes?
Sorry, it's just a slight point of order, and that's
Yes.
that we're still on the information report about we can make this amendment
Oh, okay, sorry.
when we address the deferred report
The deferred report?
next. And
Okay.
but you've got all the people lined up, you've got everything perfect, but we haven't finished any questions on this first report.
On the survey?
And then when you deal
Okay.
with the deferred report, you can change that
Thank you
on the
very much.
survey
I
on the motion.
appreciate
And
that
I think that's
correction.
clear that the working group would do this work and on the in the original motion, a working group could be formed to do this work. That totally makes sense.
Okay, so any more comments on the survey? Anyone? Is everybody happy with everything that's in it? Alan?
Just for clarification again, Madam Chair, I did not receive
Oh.
any of the agenda or the survey, so I'm not supporting it only, or not voting against it or supporting it because I don't have any information on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Dennis?
Do we need a motion on that, or we just give Richard feedback?
says
Richard, I
for
think,
info-
said no motion required, but now his head's moving the other way.
It says for information only, so it
Okay.
didn't
I
require.
I think it's good the way it is. I want to thank Allison and Richard for amending it. Other than question 30, but I guess we got logic why we leave that as is.
Okay, anyone else, any comments on the survey? Lisa?
would it make Dennis and others feel more comfortable if maybe there was just a one-line explanation as to why we're capturing the race data? Just, you know,
Just to make it
quick
more
word.
comfortable?
Yeah, you know, so that it's not coming across as something that we're trying to be against any group. We're capturing this. Please answer the following questions for our report to municipal funding, or something along those lines.
I'll improve the language at the top of the page to indicate that all of the information there is voluntary, and it's to help support us with funding applications and reporting to our federal and provincial partners.
And I
That's a
think
good
if you
idea.
point out just for funding it, you might get more answers just based on that.
Okay, anyone else have any comments? Okay, so we'll accept that as presented, and we thank again Richard and Allison for putting this survey together. It looks great, and I'm looking forward to hearing the results of it. Okay, so now we can move on. I'll move up to my agenda again.
So now, so the information report was the changes. Now you have the deferred report, which has the original survey attached to it, and the original motion that you deferred for us to consider at this meeting, and it may have the amendment to create the working group as part of that, and so we can remove that. Larger use motion if it's part of that. Let me
Okay, so the resolution at present says, be it resolved that staff, after consultation with the CDAC, report the results of the KMP Trail Stakeholders Survey as amended through report 2020-076 to council in Q1 of 2021. As part of the review of the pilot initiative to extend ATV use on the Frontenac KMP Trail from the Craig Road south to the Verona Trailhead at Bell Rock Road until November 30th, 2020. So it doesn't say anything about the working group in that one. So can I have a mover for that resolution for the survey to go out?
I think we have I think I have some I can propose some language for a proposed working group to support this. Am I on mute?
Okay, so should we pass this resolution first?
I
And
would
then deal with the working group after?
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes?
Remember Dennis Doyle put forward a motion seconded by Barry.
Yes.
And I'm not sure where that fits into what we're discussing now. I just don't want to lose track of it procedurally. I'm
Yes.
a little so I don't have the agenda. I'm a little confused exactly where we are and how it would all mesh.
Okay.
So I think for Councillor Doyle and Mr. Gilbert's motion, I think that they would be making a motion to amend this resolution in order to address the working group portion of it. And so I would propose that this language, which sort of formalizes what they were saying, that the working group established at the CDAC, our last CDAC meeting, we'll put the date in there, only focus on the KMP Trail from Craig Road to Bell Rock Road as per council resolution, and further that whichever members of this committee be appointed to the working group, and further that they report back to CDAC no later than Q1 2021 would be my proposal. Does that make sense? So that's upon advice from the clerk for language, and so it covers off that change to the working group that we had proposed at the last CDAC meeting.
Sounds good to me.
Chair, I just have the manager of and the clerk has her hand up again.
Yes, please. Yes.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. Sorry, Madam
That's all
Chair.
right.
Just as a point of process, so the actual resolution from the report 072, I believe, actually needs to be put on the floor in order to start the discussion, which is why I believe that Councillor Doyle and Mr. Gilbert moved that motion. So now that it's on the floor, you can move a motion to amend. So what the Manager of Economic Development just stated now would be an amended motion. So we would need a mover and a seconder to amend the motion, which would be, and further, that the working group established at the August 13th CDAC meeting only focus on the K&P Trail from Craig Road to Bellrock Road, and further that, and you would need to include who you want on the working group here. So this would be an amendment to the motion, and then the full motion would be carried as amended.
Okay, so we've got a mover and a seconder. Dennis, you have your hand up?
Yeah, well, I'll move that motion that Jeanette's talking about, and I suspect that it should be people in the area that's on that working group because it's really their community. Like I'm thinking Alan.
I'll second the motion.
Okay,
Thank
so we
you.
got a first and seconder to form the working group. Okay, anyone opposed to that motion? Okay, and then I think the second part of this is to form a working group. And at the last meeting, Mary and Barry had volunteered to sit on that group. I had suggested that there needs to be someone that is more in favor of ATVs, or so that we have a balanced working group. Is anyone willing to sit on this group with Barry and Mary? And they promised they'd play nice.
We always play nice.
Greg, would you have time to sit on this kind of group?
I'd be willing.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure that it's balanced, so that we have people on looking at all facets of it.
Yeah, I don't come from the perspective of an ATVer, but I do come from the perspective of tourism and you know how the issue impacts tourists. So
That's correct.
I'll second
Dennis?
that motion of Betty's with those three committee members.
With those three working group committee members, did anybody else want to sit on it? Oh, can't have too many, or else we're then.
Well, the only
we're the
thing,
committee.
I think Dennis made a very good point that really we need local Verona representation on this committee.
Okay, so Lisa or Wilma or Alan? Guess.
Anybody?
Al.
I believe, and Ms. Hunter, Chair Hunter.
Yes.
I believe that we can, for a working group, we can bring in other participants to participate in the working group, and then the working group members from CDAC, when they report back to CDAC, would bring that whole discussion back to this committee. The manager of legislative services might contradict me on that, but I think that that's possible with a working group. And so we may be able to recruit a business owner or Verona Community Association to participate in this.
Okay, Dennis, you have a question?
Yeah, so I just want to confirm that we've, the motion will be to have Mary, Barry, Greg, and Alan on the committee, on the working group, I mean. And as Richard said, we can always bring in other members of the community later. But if we go over 4, I think it's problematic because we'll have a quorum. So I think those 4 are just fine.
Okay, and then they can bring in community members to meet with them, or they can ask a community member to join the group, I guess. So do we have a seconder for that motion?
I believe Councillor Ravel moved that, seconded that motion already.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone opposed? Great. Thank you very much. So now, this is Jeanette. Do we have the other survey or the other motion, the 2020-072? Does that still have to be passed?
Yes, it is now going to be, so you're now going to call the question on the motion as amended.
Thank you very much. So can I have someone move as the motion as amended? Alan, seconder, Dennis, anyone opposed? Barry, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to offer a second.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone opposed to that motion as amended? Hearing none, the motion is passed. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
do we have a deadline that this report has to be done?
by Q1.
Okay, so
So it could go to county council when they're doing their, when we make the presentation, or when Richard makes the presentation to county council on our results of the survey and that type of thing. So it will be in the first quarter of next year.
thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just Madam Chair, and
Yes.
just to provide context on why Q1 is ideal for this, and that's because generally use of the trail begins in Q2, late March, early April, by all trail users. And so having a good definition of what uses are available for that year in advance of that time would be ideal. And so that's why we're targeting that time period.
Okay, great explanation. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Is there any other,
Clarification,
Barry?
clarification on the deadline date for the submission from the working group, please? I didn't hear it.
It's in the first quarter of next year, so
Thank you.
probably February, Richard?
Yeah, so there would be a scheduled CDAC meeting in February. So that would be the meeting where the working group would bring their results for discussion. So the working group might get together in December and January to discuss the survey results, and they might, in advance of the survey results, coordinate with people that they'd like to have discussions with around the use. As mentioned previously, residents in Verona, business owners in Verona, people with different perspectives.
Okay. So do we have someone in the working group that wishes to take charge of scheduling meetings and that type of thing? So that it doesn't get just kind of put aside?
I believe staff will have to support that.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll reach out to the working group and establish a first meeting to set up a chair and a schedule of meetings, that sort of thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. No, there's no communications, no other business. The next meeting of the CDAC is October 8th, Thursday, October 8th at 10 a.m. So I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Dennis, seconder, Lisa, anybody opposed? Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody taking the time. Have a great weekend. Talk to you later.
Wishing all a great weekend. Bye-bye.